So it's been a while now since I've received my Hati-S wireless sample unit, and I figured it'd be time to share some thoughts on what I believe to be a decent mouse that's promising for the future of G-Wolf's products. To start off, the mouse comes with a regular boring looking mouse box, but what's inside of this is pretty cool. It's a tin canister of sorts, which contains not only the mouse, but also all of its accessories. Those accessories being, first off, as you can see, I've already applied some of the grips. There's grip tape, comes with a smelling packet, supposedly smells like lemon, but I would describe it more as the scent of cleaning chemicals in a public toilet or something. It's a bit annoying at first, but the grips are really good. I would say they're up there with lizard skins. They're really grippy, but they're not as slimy to the touch as lizard skins are. There's like a smidgen less grippy than lizard skins, but they're really good. They don't peel off. They're solid grips. Then of course you have the replacement skates. Sadly, in this sample unit of mine, it didn't come with one for the censoring, which was kind of a bummer, because I don't know how well you can see this in the recording, but there's like a little scratch or a bump in mine. Let me see if I can... There you go. It also came applied halfway across the sensor, which sucked because I had to take it off and reapply it since there's no replacement for it. But other than that, the feet are really smooth. They're not too fast. They have great control. I actually don't feel it's necessary to upgrade to aftermarket skates on this one. As for the more interesting accessories, you of course have the fabled G-Wolf's brush, which the most plausible explanation for the inclusion of this that I've heard is it's for cleaning the holes. I wouldn't personally use a brush for this, but it's what makes the most sense to me. I don't see why else you would need a brush. And then of course with the sample unit you get the antenna. I can't find the source for this anymore, but supposedly this is not going to be in the final product. I guess it makes sense because this is kind of overkill for a mouse. I've never seen this before. It's not great. It's kind of loose in the wireless extender. Yeah, it's just kind of unnecessary. It makes for a great connection, but again, supposedly in the final product you're going to have a regular mouse dongle. As for the internals of the mouse, the main clicks use K 8.0s. I would describe them personally as a more defined Omron 20M switch. They're really good, they're tactile, they're crispy, they're a bit harder to actuate than most Omrons, but it's a good mouse switch. It feels good in this mouse, except for over time it started feeling a bit looser and not as crispy as it did out of the box, but it's still tactile. I'm guessing this is due to the construction, maybe the plastic loosening a bit or something. It's just not as crispy as it was out of the gate. As for the side buttons, these are really good. They're well defined, they're very tactile and responsive, but the back one has a fair bit more travel than the front one. I don't know if this is down to me using it a lot more than the front one, but besides that, they feel fine. They're both good. It's just a bit of a difference in between the two. This to some extent is also present in the Ace Edition Hati-S wired, only not as much, so maybe this is a common issue with these mice and it's just exacerbated by me using this one a lot more. I'm not sure, but besides that, it's a great side button. The mouse wheel on this I feel is going to be a bit controversial because it's very tactile, the steps are very well defined, but it's very rough. It's a rough scrolling experience, and it's also a bit of a heavy middle mouse button, which I know many people dislike. I would actually compare this to the Razer Viper Ultimate's mouse wheel. It feels very similar. This one's actually a bit louder in some of the units I've tried, but they're similar only on the Hati-S wireless. It's turned up a notch. It's rougher and it's harder to actuate. As for the weight of the mouse, it's advertised to be approximately 58 grams, which does seem to check out. Mine, with some grip tapes applied, weighs in at 61.6, which is fair. However, I want to bring up the weight distribution. Some people have claimed this is back heavy. It's not at all. I don't see why you would think it is. It's actually maybe a bit front heavy. Like, the weight seems to be more towards the main trigger. If you turn it around, lay it on its back, it always tilts towards the front left or right, left-hand side from the top. But this is not an issue exclusive to the Hati-S wireless, as it's also the case for the Ace edition. The dimensions, according to the box, are a 113mm length, a width of about 61mm. Of course, as you can see, it tapers in on the sides. The grip width is a fair bit slimmer, and a height of 40mm. The Hati-S shape is often referred to as the G Pro Wireless's little brother, but not because it's the same shape scaled down. I think it's actually because they're similarly safe shapes. The biggest factor, in my opinion, being the central hump. That's the same height for both of them. It allows for a great variety of grip styles to work on many different hand sizes. On the Hati-S wireless especially, I think what makes it so safe for a small mouse is the aggressive curves. It makes it very easy, even with hands that are on the larger side, to rest your pinky finger and ring finger to make for a good, solid, controlled claw grip experience. And of course, you can also fingertip it very well, better even than the G Pro Wireless, just because, in my opinion anyways, just because it's thinner and obviously it's a lot shorter, so you're not going to hit the back of your hand so much. To talk a bit about the sensor and the battery, the sensor in the Hati-S wireless is a PAW3335DB, as it says on the box. It's a G-Wolf's modified version of the Pixar 3335 sensor. It features 40G acceleration, 400 IPS max tracking speed, so you're not limited in that regard by the sensor. Also, a common issue that people complain about with the 3335 sensors is a high lift-off distance. This is probably where the modification done by G-Wolves or whomever comes in, because there don't seem to be any issues regarding to lift-off distance on this mouse. It's not nearly as bad as the Viper Mini, and I would go so far as to say the lift-off distance is basically flawless, if that's a thing, as it doesn't track on one DVD's height, and I've never had like unexpected movements or anything with it. Besides the impressive sensor performance, the battery also lasts decently long, not quite as long as the G Pro Wireless or the G Pro X Superlight, but you for sure don't have to charge it on the daily. This is one on 1000 Hz polling rate, and with the RGB, if you want to call it that, off. To show you what I mean, I'm going to open up the software quickly. So the RGB, or as it's called in the software, DPI effect, is actually just a color you can set for your DPI indicator, and you can set it to be either a steady light or a respiration effect, so just breathing. It's not RGB. I don't know why you would call it that, but yeah, it's off in my case. What may be a concern to some of you is build quality. It was for me, but the Hati-S wireless is a lot sturdier than what I expected after hearing so much bad about G-Wolf's build quality. Initially, it was basically perfect. There was no creaking, no flexing, no nothing, no rattle. It was great, but it's developed some slight creaking here and there over time, which is not nearly as bad as, for example, on my Xtrfy MZ1. But it's a bit of a concern because I don't know how it's going to hold up in the future. I've not had mice develop creaking, but this one has for sure. One minor concern is the switch, turning it on and off. I kind of expect this to break because it requires a lot of force, and when turning it off, there's basically no feedback. You've actually turned it off. There's no click, no snap, no nothing. Whereas when you try to turn it on, it requires a lot more force, but there's like a real snap, like a hefty clicking noise, which is odd. As for creaking, Maybe I'm misinformed, but supposedly the Ace line of G-Wolf's mice has top tier build quality. However, this Hati-S Ace edition of mine, it creaks so much more than the Hati-S wireless or any other mouse I've ever had. It's very creaky all around. So the Hati-S wireless definitely seems to be a step up in regards to that. So in conclusion, I think the Hati-S wireless is a great option for those looking for a wireless mouse and either have pretty small hands or like to fingertip or claw grip their mice. Some good alternatives in my opinion are the Razer Orochi V2 if either your fingers are the only contact point with the mouse or your hands are really just that small and you really want wireless. Also, the Xtrfy MZ1 is actually a good alternative in my opinion if you fingertip grip and prefer the hump to be a bit lower, or otherwise you can just go for a G Pro wireless shape, so either the regular G Pro wireless or the super light if you want to play it safe. However, any mouse that's currently on the market beats the Hati-S wireless in availability. I don't think you can currently even get it outside of maybe a couple sellers on Mouse Market, if at all. It's, to my knowledge, only up for sale on X-Ray Pad, where it's out of stock, so who really knows when you can get one of these. If you're really into the Hati-S shape, I would just get the wired version. They're cheaper, it's basically the same mouse, only it uses a wire. If you're just looking for a good all-rounder wireless mouse, and maybe even want to pay a bit less, I would look at the Razer Viper or the G Pro wireless. Either way, the Hati-S wireless is a great step up for G-Wolf's mice. They're on a good track, and I'm kind of excited to see further improvements to their mice and also what they have in stock. Talking about the HSK and the HSK Plus, yeah, really excited to see.